Hi, everyone. We've set up this Being an Engineer podcast as an industry knowledge repository, if you will. We hope it'll be a tool where engineers can learn about and connect with other companies, technologies, people, resources, and opportunities. So make some connections and enjoy the show.
The traditional way to do this is build it, test it, and see what happens. That's not a good engineer. A good engineer sets a target and a requirement, and then they hit the requirement.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Being an Engineer podcast. Today we're talking with Mark Hanchett, who is CEO and founder at Atlis Motor Vehicles. Mark is a mechanical engineer and formerly director at Axon, formerly Taser. I'd like to read Mark's LinkedIn description because I think it'll set the tone for the rest of the conversation. It says, "I believe that to change the world, we need to build it ourselves. We cannot wait for the government to force it, and we cannot wait for big corporations to innovate. To make this world better, we need to develop the products, technologies, and solutions that make the current standard obsolete. I believe dedication to this is what makes great products and great people." This is a theme that I heard many times as I was researching for this episode and listening, reading, learning about the development of AMV's, Atlis Motor Vehicles products, and we'll certainly get into that shortly. Before we do that, Mark, can you just maybe take a minute and introduce yourself, who you are, where you've been, what you've done, and where you are now?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on the show here. I'm Mark Hanchett, as you alluded to. How do I describe myself? I like doing innovative, cool stuff. And I've spent my entire professional career building products from concept to complete end of life and the next generation, of building businesses within those products that have completely changed the world. And that's what I love to do. I don't like to just sort of play in a field that's exciting. I like to do things that change lives. And I spent 10 years doing that at Axon and, incorporating Atlis in 2016, been doing that since then. Mechanical engineer by education. I've done software, hardware, cloud services, mobile, battery-powered systems, embedded systems, weapon systems, like all these sort of crazy kind of things when you think about it, and throughout my entire career. And every single one has been focused on that one thing, which is, how do we make people's lives better? How do we save lives in the last company? How do we create transparency? Here at Atlis, we're very much so focused on making lives better by leveraging the technology that we're building for like electric vehicles and things like that. But how do we make it better for those that are going to, what we say, build, dig, grow, and maintain? Because that is a forever industry. We will always need those things. So how do we leverage technology and build ecosystems and product solutions that make those lives and those jobs easier?
We're definitely going to dig into Atlis a lot during this episode. Before I get there, I'm hoping I can ask you a couple of questions about Axon, formerly Taser. Every engineer here in Arizona knows what Taser is, what Axon is, because they're in our backyard in Scottsdale. I actually did a short stint there myself on loan from another engineering company for about a month or so. So I have even a little bit of hands-on experience there. But for those who don't know what Axon is, can you share a little bit about that company and what your role was?
Yeah, so Axon is a company dedicated to, making the bullet obsolete. How do we create a solution that, saves lives, but is better than a bullet, I guess would be the best way to say that. And then, of course, the other side of Axon is this idea of leveraging digital technology and for evidence management, digital evidence management, records management. How do we make the world of law enforcement more transparent? But how do we save lives through this sort of digital evidence, transparent evidence collection sort of methodology? And how do we tie that all together in one big ecosystem? So everybody knows them originally as Taser. which was focused on building the weapon systems. When I got involved, I was building the world's first 12-gauge shotgun shell taser projectile. So think what officers carry in a hip. We put that in a 12-gauge shotgun shell.
It's amazing.
And I ended my career on the video side of the business. And that was an interesting one because this idea of transparency in law enforcement, video collection, digital evidence management, and they've gotten into a whole bunch of other stuff since then, is this idea that you could actually save more lives leveraging something as simple as that, potentially, than anything else. Because the moment people know that they're being recorded, the attitude changes, everything changes.
Yeah.
But we operated under a mindset that it wasn't just about the products. It was about the vision of where we were going, and everything we did had to make law enforcement lives better, easier, and sort of go from there. And I developed everything from battery systems to hardware systems to high-powered, high-voltage systems to I got into some bio stuff. I got into like material science. I got into all these things. And Axon is really dedicated towards that particular mission. Now, what I'm doing today is taking that mindset that we had at Axon and applying it to this sort of new energy automotive ecosystem. Because over there, that's what we did. We didn't just build hardware products. We built solutions.
Now, I've heard, this could be apocryphal, so correct me if this is not correct, but I've heard that the engineers that work, at least on the weapon systems, the Taser side of things, they have to be tased before they come onto the company. Is that true?
It's not a requirement, but at least during my time there, we all volunteered.
Okay, and what does that feel like?
It's just scary. And then when you're done, you're done. So for like that 5 seconds, it's just scary, right? Because you can't move. But then when you're done, you're done.
No residual, side effects after that, huh?
No.
And during that 5 seconds, you're just immobilized?
Yeah, and that's the scary part, right? Like you're trying to do something, you just can't.
And I imagine there's some pain that goes along with that immobilization.
No, that's the interesting thing. There's
Really?
no pain. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's surprising. Okay. Very interesting. Well, Mark, winding back the clock even a little bit further, what was it that made you decide to become an engineer in the first place?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I'm one of those guys that, I've always been into technology. I started my first business when I was 11. I've done a number of things throughout my life, but kind of trying to figure out like where you want to go. Engineering was one of those things where I could do anything. I could work on anything. I could go anywhere and I could invent really cool things. And actually I had a professor at a community college that I started at, and he talked me into it. He sort of like gave me this little speech, and I'll remember it because he was talking about like, do you want to be a person who just uses it, or do you want to be a person that kind of creates it? And the way he had put it at that time was very compelling, and an idea that, okay, if I go through this thing, I could work in aerospace. I could work in this case, we're doing the EV things, but I can literally like all those things that I think about and talk about doing that are like these big, profound things that I want to do. Engineering is a path to doing those things. Sometimes we think about like the business guys that are running the show, but in reality, especially in the technology space and in product development space, the engineers are really the ones that realize that vision. And that's why I chose this particular path.
Yeah, it really is amazing how much you can do with a background in engineering. I mean, it's not just designing products. I think engineering teaches you how to learn. And once you know how to learn, sky's the limit. Yeah,
I would say being an engineer or working as an engineer. Now, it's possible for you to go from nothing to an engineer without the education piece. I will say that is entirely possible. I have a team member here I will praise all day because he is living proof of that. But it's interesting in that an engineer allows you, as you said, to learn to do anything. You could do business, you could do marketing, you could do sales if you wanted to. But it teaches you how to fundamentally build an understanding of something and apply it to something. And that's very powerful.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's dive into Atlis. How and when did Atlis get started, and what needs is Atlis trying to accomplish that other automotive companies are not fulfilling?
So the way I would describe Atlis is the automotive industry hasn't changed for 100 years, 100 plus years. And all of the new companies that are coming out today, they're really not changing anything in the industry. They're building a new kind of propulsion. Electrification is a new type of propulsion. It's a new type of energy storage and a new way of propelling a vehicle. But you're not necessarily like changing the fundamental industry of the automotive space. You're still building a vehicle and selling it. And Atlis is foundationally built on this concept that we can completely change this industry in terms of how we think about the vehicles, how we sell those to customers, how we interact with customers, and how those particular products interact with the rest of the ecosystem that falls in the space. It's not vehicles anymore. It's energy production, storage, distribution, application. And the reason why I put it like that is because there's this idea that all of that is interconnected throughout your entire sort of life, in your daily life. And bringing all of that together means you're bringing a solution to market versus a singular product that operates in and of itself. And the success of that is dependent on others. And the experience your customer has is dependent on others. So in the fundamental technology around that is battery technology. And that's why we're starting there versus going right for the vehicle and then figuring out how I like build the rest of it. Because the vehicle is just a piece of the puzzle. So Atlis is really about fundamentally changing this particular space when we think of energy, infrastructure, and applications. And the reason why I say applications is because it could be equipment, vehicles, other things that are battery powered, whatever that is, that operate within that sort of ecosystem. And we're very focused on the work market because work is everything. It's agriculture, it's construction, it's maintenance, it's services, it's utility companies. It is everything that will forever be needed. And the consumer market might change, but no matter what, we are always going to need those things.
I want to interject something there. You mentioned that you're focused on the work market. When I was researching for this interview, I watched some videos, and one of the products that you have is the XT pickup truck.
Yes.
And it looks enormous. You're not a small dude yourself, and you were standing next to this thing,
I'm not.
And this thing was like... Yeah. I didn't mean that like you're fat, Wade.
It's too late. I've already painted the picture, but yeah.
But is it really that big of a truck, or is it just the lens in which this thing was filmed or something? It looks huge.
Yeah, we're really focused on what we call class 2 and above. So think what most people call heavy duty, but think like F-250 and above market segments. Or if you're looking at like an F-150, but like on the high end of an F-150 in terms of like capability, size, engine, performance, that's where we find the most excitement, because that's really like, when I think of all of those markets that I talked about, that's what they need. They upfit their vehicles, they're towing, they're hauling, they're like doing stuff with it. And these little baby vehicles work in certain applications, but they don't work everywhere. The consumer market doesn't need it, but it's actually, what's interesting, it's one of the fastest growing segments in the consumer market as well, which is super interesting.
Work vehicles.
The sort of like F-250 sort of and above market segment. So it's a very interesting where things are kind of shifting that way. So while we are work focused, we do have a tremendous number of what we call individual buyers that are interested in what we're doing, because they use their trucks for, maybe they're like weekend warriors, right? They sort of do projects on the weekends. Maybe they're campers. They tow things up into the mountains. They take their toys out we're in Arizona, right? You take your UTV out to the desert. You're going to tow the trailer and the UTVs, the four-wheelers and the dirt bikes and everything else, right? And you want to go out there and play for a weekend. That's the market segment that we're really focused on.
How did you come up with the idea for this company? I mean, is it something that you've been thinking about for just years and years and years, or was it like a light bulb moment?
No, it's I don't think anything's like a light bulb moment. Everything is progressive, right? If you're, as an engineer, you're trying to solve a problem. and you've identified a solution. And as you identify a solution, you realize, okay, well, there's this and this and this and this and this problem set. And then as you sort of think through that particular problem set, you identified kind of like, okay, well, here's the larger sort of problem that exists here, and therefore the opportunity. So I thought about this for a very long time. 2013 was like kind of this eureka year for me where I was like, you know what, like I'm going to do this thing. And that's when I really started working on it. 2016 is when we incorporated, but from 2016 on, it has always been, and we've never changed our business model. It has always been focused on the energy side, battery side, energy storage, production, platform technology solutions for upfitters and those that want to electrify their particular niche solution to work within that ecosystem. And then the truck is the flagship product. It's a staple product. It's a common product in all of those industries. So it's foundational. But the business is really built around, those are the products that we talk about, but it's built around how all those things interact. So we want to be a solutions provider. We go into a construction company. I don't want to just give you a truck. I want to give you every piece of the truck, the infrastructure, and everything to make that business operate. And then we've got long-term visions beyond that.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I'm curious about how an automotive company like this gets funded. I mean, it's got to be hundreds of millions, if not billions, to start a new automotive company, even though I get that you're not strictly automotive, right? You have these other kind of core platforms, and automotive is layered on. How does that happen? What's the process like?
So I would say 99.9% of the time, there's maybe 2 or 3 of us that are not funded this way. It comes from individual wealth or family wealth. Is what starts most of these companies. In fact, so it's an individual that had prior a company, right? And therefore they sold that, and they're a wealthy individual and they want to start an automotive company. It's one where mom and dad, I think like mom's a senator, right? Dad's got an engineering business. They put all their sort of funds into it and fund that. It's typically how it's funded. There's those 2 ways, but it's not necessarily the way you have to do it, because the challenge is in the vehicle side or the battery side, it's about $2 billion to your first dollar of revenue.
Wow.
So
yeah, I mean, this is not like an app startup, right? Where you raise $1 million, couple $1 million, and you're done.
It's not a weekend thing, right? That. Yeah. Where you can raise like $1 million, right? And that gets you to your next milestone and keep going from there. Although I guess I can call bullshit on that. Sorry, I do swear, but because that's what I did. So I'm a much more humble background, humble beginnings here. But I think that's actually powerful, because what we did was I leveraged the customer base and the consumer or the buyer, and went out there and said, listen, if I'm doing the things, if this is right, then would they get behind this? So we actually raised, I think we're up to about $35 million so far. And we raised $35 million from roughly about 20,000 investors. Okay. And they're investors. They're not, this isn't Kickstarter pre-orders. They own common stock of Atlis Motor Vehicles.
Got it.
We did $1 million, then 14, then 5, then I think we're up to like 15 now. So it's been this like crazy journey as we go through this thing. Now we're moving on to the next phase. But what's interesting is we've raised $35 million, and we've done more with $35 million than most do with 300.
Interesting. So talk a little bit about that. How is your team able to be so efficient with the funds that you have? What are you doing that other companies are not, or vice versa? What are you not doing that other companies are and shouldn't be?
Well, I won't say that we don't get distracted. Everybody does. But I think we're very, very good at focusing on the things that matter and not focusing on the things that don't matter right now. What I was going to say is like you spend money, time, and energy on the things that truly matter at that point, and you don't know if tomorrow is going to come. So you bet on tomorrow and you build as though tomorrow is going to come, but you understand that the decisions you make today, you'll look back on it and say, why? But it makes sense at that moment in time. So focus on that moment and focus on how that moment gets you to the next day. And I think that's what makes us different. Others, they get a huge check and then they spend all this money, but they're not really focused on today and how that gets to tomorrow. They're more focused on like, how do I make this business look cool, or whatever it is. There are things that don't matter at the moment that are not going to get you to tomorrow.
Yeah. Do you have any tricks? Because in the moment, it might be tough to realize this does or does not matter long term. Do you have any tricks, any rules of thumb to help you determine which things really do or don't matter?
So always focus on the things that are core to what you're trying to deliver. So if you're in engineering, you're developing a product, there's always 100 things that you can test. There's 100 things that you could think of to make your product better. Those things might come in the next generation, the next iteration, but focus on the core things that are functional for that application. Those are the things that matter, and work on those.
What I'm hearing you say, if I were to rephrase it, is that have a clear, strong vision or purpose. And when you need to make decisions, especially big ones, look back to the vision and purpose and ask yourself, does this decision or how does this decision support the vision or the purpose that we have as a company? And if it does, great, that's what you do. If it doesn't, discard it and move on to the next thing. Is that more or less what you're saying?
Yeah, and I would say you're going to make 10 million mistakes along the way. Don't dwell on a mistake. Just like, okay, mistake was made. This is what we learned. Next.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to take a short pause and share with the listeners that teampipeline.us is where you can learn more about how we help medical device and other product engineering or manufacturing teams develop turnkey equipment, custom fixtures, and automated machines to characterize, inspect, assemble, manufacture, and perform verification testing on your devices. And today we're speaking with Mark Hanchett from Atlis Motor Vehicles. So let's see, Mark, we talked a little bit about the XT pickup. What are some of the features or technologies that differentiate that vehicle from other vehicles out there, especially as more and more electric trucks are being introduced to the market?
So we always start with the core thing. If you're going to make a big leap forward, the battery is foundational. That is the thing that is going to require compromise. And that is what's different with us. So we're an energy company. We build our own battery cells and packs, and that's going into the XT.
So you're not buying from Panasonic or something?
No. And we've developed our own technology. It's patented or patent pending, depending on which piece of it you're talking about, that allows you to charge a vehicle in 15 minutes. But it also, because of that, it allows you to get consistent output from 100% to 0% of the battery. And that's important because when you're towing, hauling, and it's heavy loads, you want consistency throughout that range.
That is amazing. 15 minutes. Now, let me clarify. Is this a technology that already exists, or is that's kind of the goal? You want to get to a point where you can charge it in 15 minutes?
So we've already demonstrated the technology. It exists.
Wow.
We've when I started the company 2018, I think roughly 2018 August, something like that, September, we charged a battery pack in 12 minutes 47 seconds. And we've been continuing to develop that technology since then. We're down to 8 minutes 50 seconds consistent.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've been following the electric pickup truck revolution that's going on, right? The Rivian and Hummer and the Ford Lightning, the F-150 Lightning. And that's one of the big complaints still. I mean, with all electric vehicles, not just trucks, but it takes, an hour to charge up even at one of the fast charging stations, let alone if you plug in at home and then it's like, 10 hours or something.
Right. So this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. If you're going to change the world, you're not going to convince people to compromise. You'll get early adopters that will accept it. And you'll get some that are like, okay, I don't really need this. But if you're really, truly going to change the world, you have to do something that doesn't require compromise. This is one of those things. And in the truck market, you're talking about people that, they have needs. And whether or not you agree with their needs, it doesn't matter. They have needs. And you have to be able to meet those needs. And if you want to convince them to make that transition, you have to develop the technology to do that. So they want to tow, they want to haul, and they don't want to waste time sitting still.
Yeah, amazing. Well, what a huge milestone. All right. Who is the XT pickup for, and when will it be available to, I know you said it's mostly for probably fleets, the workforce,
Yep.
but even for individuals who might want to purchase one, when are they going to be available, do you think?
So I don't give forecast anymore because it's all dependent on funding and everything else. What I will say is you can continue to watch the progress on the truck on our social media channels, YouTube channels, and everything that's there. We'll continue to develop that, and you're going to see that over the next several years as we continue to move forward. I'm not going to give timeframes on that. I'm sorry, because I'll get beat up for that later, right? And it's one of those things. But as we get closer to a release date, you'll definitely start to be updated on that. We have almost 50,000+ reservations for the truck today, plus another 20,000 committed purchase orders for it. Or committed contracts for it. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use the term purchase orders. These are contractual commitments to buy 20,000+ vehicles. So we've got a tremendous amount of demand for the vehicles. And we know there's never truly been a successful start, even from the OEMs, where they just suddenly ramp up to tens of thousands of vehicles in the first year. So it'll have to be some patience with that. I will tell you that our roadmap is we've got the 30 pack, which is a 30 kilowatt hour pack going to customers that we're focused on currently. Then it's platform, then it's vehicles. In between there, you're going to get energy storage and charging infrastructure deployed as well. Now that's what makes us different. Remember, I said it's $2 billion to revenue. We are booking revenue and recognizing revenue this year. And we've already taken deposits for these things. So we're building those products right now and getting ready to start shipping those to customers.
Wow. Congratulations. That's a big step.
Yeah.
One of the things that I saw mentioned in the videos that I watched and things I read was that the XT and let's see, how do I say this? The team was very intentional in pursuing function over form. And,
yes.
And I wonder, does that infer that, kind of no attention was given to form? And how did the team make that decision?
I think that's that's probably a fair question. So the truck is, while we do focus on work customers, it is for individual buyers. We've got a tremendous number of consumers that want it. And between those two markets, fleet buyers sometimes they actually care what it looks like, but they place sort of ROI over looks. But your consumer buyers and your individual buyers, they care about what it looks like. What we mean is it has to look good, it has to be sexy, but we want to place an emphasis on functionalities over form. And what that means is we don't put wood trim inside the truck. I think that's a cost and expense that some customers love, and I don't want to knock them for that. But from our particular standpoint, we think there's elegance and simplicity.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was really cool was how your team talked about reusing elements over and over in the design, not just designing things once, but designing things once and using it over and over, which is something that I can very much appreciate because at Pipeline, pretty much everything we design is one-off. It's all custom.
Yeah,
and
right.
it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
It's really hard to, continually be reinventing the wheel. So I thought it was really neat that you were able to design things once and then you use that design multiple times throughout the vehicle.
Yeah, so this goes back to this concept of you're never going to be better than an OEM at manufacturing a vehicle if you build it like an OEM. So if we are going to disrupt this industry from a manufacturing technology perspective, we have to take a look at the underlying technology that goes into the vehicle and how do we do this in a much simpler way. So if you've got 80 plus circuit boards or control modules in the vehicle, how do we bring that down to 36? And then of those 36, how do we get that down to maybe 4 common modules that are inside there? We do the same thing in the drivetrain, the suspension components, the interior components. And that's not to say that it looks plain and simple. It's purely just that we look at it and say, how can I engineer something once and use it multiple times to reduce my cost, reduce my time to market, increase reliability? Because the less you have to engineer, the less faults you have to deal with, the greater the reliability of that particular system, right? It's an n factorial number, right? So you have to think about it from that perspective. How do we do that? That'll drive our cost down. That drives our value up. And it drives our time down and everything else down. Like it's beautiful, but it has to work. And so far, we've been very successful in making all of that stuff work. So we use common modules, common motors, common traction systems, brake systems, everything.
Yeah, that seems like a very smart way to go about it. Why do you think that electric automotive technology is thriving now, while other technologies like hydrogen have kind of gone by the wayside?
So a lot of people focus on cost, and I will argue that is 100% true. The cost for hydrogen fueling infrastructure, the efficiency of it, and things like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. The other side of it is when you think about electrification, technically the energy storage solution that's inside there may and will change, but the propulsion mechanism doesn't necessarily have to fundamentally change, right? It's magnetism. So that investing in battery technology allows us to, and we've demonstrated this already. This is what's coming to market from us. If you look at why hydrogen, well, battery technology is already starting to leapfrog the why hydrogen argument because they care about fill-up times and range. And we're already starting to overcome that. So once you overcome that, it becomes a cost argument, and battery tech always wins. The electric infrastructure today, what it looks like is not going to be what it looks like tomorrow, but there's innovations from companies like Atlis in the energy infrastructure side of things. How do we create microgrids, virtual grid solutions? How do we completely change that infrastructure? And that's a much easier conversation to have because it's far-reaching and very deep in terms of the impact versus hydrogen that's very isolated in terms of the impact. That creates fragmentation. So when I think about it, it comes down to cost, time, simplicity, and how do we make deep impacts with common technology? Battery technology in the vehicle is being applied everywhere else. And that's what we're doing at Atlis is how do we sort of go deep, right, and go broad with that, build that infrastructure out with that technology, apply it across the board, and it just simplifies the argument.
Is the energy density of your batteries different than, the common EV battery out there? Can you go, further? I guess what is the range of the XT pickup?
So this is an interesting conversation. It's 500 miles. Maximum range should be 500 miles, which
is really good.
It is really good. So when we talk about this, the traditional way to do this is build it, test it, and see what happens. That's not a good engineer. A good engineer sets a target and a requirement, and then they hit the requirement. And they test to validate they hit the requirement, right? It's not sort of like hit it, aim for a target, whatever happens, great. That's why you don't land on the moon doing that. Or I guess Mars would be the next one. So I look at it in terms of that's the requirement. The energy density of the pack is what matters. The cell is competitive. That I'm not going to argue about that one, right? We can go higher and lower. We're chemistry agnostic. But it's it's the pack energy density that actually matters. If you get a little lower cell energy density, but a much higher pack energy density, you win.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So we really focus on what we actually do is we design a cell for the pack. We don't design a cell, then design a pack around the cell.
Okay. Yeah. So you've really taken this technology from the ground up, right? Made it your own. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, Mark, what would Mark of today say to Mark of 20, 25 years ago about being an engineer that you wish you had known back then?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, I would say it's worth it. But I would say, how about if I do it this way? What would I tell Mark? When did I graduate? 16 years ago, roughly. What would I tell Mark 16 years ago that I now know today? And I would say 16 years ago, what I would say is you know absolutely nothing. And learn as much as you can.
That's great. We were just having a conversation earlier, actually, about a project that we're doing where engineers right out of school, some of them, not all, of course, but they think that they know everything, and nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah. It's like you leave college and you're like, man, I'm a genius. You get to
Yeah.
work and you realize, maybe not, but I've still got some confidence in me. You go 5 years in and you realize, God, I knew nothing.
Yeah.
I didn't
I
know.
took 3 years of Japanese in high school, and then I ended up living in Japan for a little while, and I had a little bit of training before I went beyond those 3 years in high school. But I thought to myself, yeah, I think I'm pretty good. I got this, And then I landed in Japan, and oh boy, I did not have that. I didn't know the language at all. And I think, it's pretty similar for engineers graduating.
Yeah, I would say that's like a strength of mine being, CEO, starting a company like this. I've got 10 years of experience and I've worked on really hard problems in really difficult situations. And that's something I pride myself on because I'm not sort of walking into this completely blind. Now, I will tell you, I knew nothing when I started this, and I've had to learn a lot. But having that experience and that background, it matters, right? Like even if you can or can't apply it. But the first thing, everyone's going to walk into something you don't know. And my only advice to that is don't quit. Even if you walk into something and you're like, man, I don't know if I want to do this, just do it. Because at the end of whatever that thing is, you might realize I learned something, or what I'm doing is really, really great. I can tell you I've been thrown into programs in my career where I walk in and I say, why am I doing this? Because what I did before is not applicable to what I'm doing now. And this isn't who I am. But I learned things and I came out of it and said, wow, like what I'm doing right now, I was not interested in, angry about it. I love it. So always, just whatever it is, just do it, give it a chance, work through the problem, learn something, and apply it to the next thing you do.
Great advice. Really great advice. Speaking of advice, I think that engineers really do make great business owners. We know how to think logically. We're good with numbers. Do you have any advice that you could give to engineers who might be listening to this that are considering starting their own business?
Man, I would say, okay. Here's the advice I'd give everyone. The ones you've already heard, just do it. Like, don't overanalyze it. Don't wait for the right moment. Because timing is everything, but you're never going to know what the right timing is to start something. So just do it. And be prepared to fail. Now, the other piece of advice I'm going to give anyone that wants to do this, but an engineer in particular, is an engineer sometimes looks at something and says, well, like tomorrow, it looks like I'm going to run out of money. And all the data and the numbers say I'm going to run out of money. So I should probably hang up my hat, right? And say like, put the coat on or whatever, put the hat on, walk out the door, whatever phrase you want to use. You have to have the resilience to go even when the data says you shouldn't.
That's very counterintuitive for an engineer.
It is. This is not starting a business is something where resilience and persistence wins sometimes over fear and the data when it's telling you you shouldn't do something. You will be like, if you base it on data, you're going to talk to 100 people and they're all going to tell you you're an idiot and you shouldn't do it. Because somebody else will think of it and they're better off doing it than you, whatever it is. You have to be able to go forward even when nobody else can.
I'll add something to that statement. I think that persistence and tenacity also win out over smarts. You have to be intelligent enough, but you don't need to be the smartest guy in the room, top 1%.
No, hire people that are
intelligent.
Better than you.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you're, intelligent enough, which honestly, it doesn't even need to be that high. But if you're intelligent enough and you have tenacity, you can just persevere and keep going. That, I think, is far more important than being super smart and knowing all the answers.
Yeah, it's probably those of us that are the least intelligent are the ones that keep going. So, I mean, there's that too. But yeah, I mean, always focus on bringing people on board that are so much better than you at the things that you are definitely not good at. And even the things you think you're good at, go find someone better than you that can do it better.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, what would I answer to that question? What advice do you give to someone who wants to start a business? I think one of the things is be willing to pay good money, a lot of money for really good people. That's been huge for me.
Yeah, it's fantastic advice. There was another one as I was thinking through that in terms of, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, right? And I mentioned this earlier, like just kind of keep going forward. But it's this idea that if you're going to start a business, you're not going to know all the answers, and you're going to have to think about that as you go. But as you continue to grow, you're going to find people that know the answers better than you, and they'll make them faster. And realize that the people from day one are not the people at day 100, but every other day after day one, you get better.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well said, Mark. Well, this has been just a wonderful discussion. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to share with me and all the listeners. Mark, how can people get in touch with you?
So the best way would be to send an email to info@atlismotorvehicles.com. One of our people there will answer it. If it's directed very specifically towards me, they'll actually forward it to me, and I will most likely answer that question.
Excellent. And for engineers who might be listening to this, thinking to themselves, wow, that sounds like a really cool place to work. Is Atlis hiring?
Oh, yes. We've got openings for hardware, software, mechanical engineers, manufacturing, operations, you name it. We've got openings for all of that stuff. Check out some of the job openings on our careers page. If you want to join Atlis, that's fun. The one thing I will say is we look for people that are mission driven, not job driven. So if you come to Atlis, we're looking for people that buy off on the mission, because what's in the job description may not be what you need to do tomorrow. It's all about what we need to accomplish to move ourselves forward.
Terrific. All right. Well, Mark, thank you so much again. I really appreciate you being on the show.
All right. Thank you.
I'm Aaron Monker, founder of Pipeline Design and Engineering. If you liked what you heard today, please share the episode. To learn how your team can leverage our team's expertise developing turnkey equipment, custom fixtures, and automated machines, and with product design, visit us at teampipeline.us. Thanks for listening.